I can see that I kind of messed up the other video, so I'm going to try to redo it a little bit and try to be more concise and with my explanation of the DNA. We got three different kinds of DNA testing that you can do. One is the Y chromosome that only the male descendants can take because they have the Y chromosome. Only only the male have a Y chromosome, and this shows of course, the father to son ancestry, and then you have the autosomal DNA test, which shows how much genetic information that you share with other people who are your cousins. And then there is the mitochondrial DNA, which is the female mother to daughter line that we get the mitochondrial DNA from. So, of course, everybody has mitochondrial DNA. Not everybody has the Y chromosome. Only the males have the Y chromosome, but everybody has the mitochondrial DNA. So everybody can take a mitochondrial DNA test. Only the males can take the Y chromosome test. Everybody can take the autosomal test, which shows how we're related to each other. And the cheapest test, of course, would be the autosomal test, the one everybody takes, about $60 or less. And it happens to be, well, I can't say it's the most important one, but the other ones are important too. But it's easy to find your ancestry when all your cousins start showing up, which I will explain maybe if I get to it. So, without further ado, let me this time show my pie charts, which was somehow I didn't know I was not showing before, but before I do that, here we go. So yeah, I hope to show with the pie charts. I want to show the human population, the genetic distribution throughout the world. This distribution shows that people went from Turkey and the Middle East, Greece, and places like that to different places in the world, such as Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Everybody spread out from the Middle East according to the DNA charts because everybody's more or less represented in the center, and everybody is spread out from the center, Middle East, to all these other areas. In other words, different families went different places according to the DNA pie charts. And we did not come from Africa. The people that are in Africa went to Africa according to the historical records because, of course, Mitzrayim is one of the sons of Ham who founded Egypt along with his mother, whose name was Egyptus. So in the Bible, if you want to know about Egypt, it's referred to as Mitzrayim because it's Mitzrayim that founded Egypt. So all of the Egyptians are descended from Ham, the original Egyptians. That is, all the pharaohs and stuff were descended from Mitzrayim, who is one of the sons of Ham, or descendants of Ham, actually, the grandson of Ham. So the other son would be Shem, which all the Semites come from, or Shemites or Semites. And the other son is Japheth, which would be the Japhethites. So we have the Y chromosome that identifies all the Hamites, all the Shemites, and all the Japhethites, which is what I intend to show with these pie charts, proving the evolutionary prediction wrong that we did not all come from Africa, because otherwise everybody would be represented in Africa. Since we did not all come from Africa, we're not represented. We're not all represented in Africa. We are all represented in the Middle East, which is what these pie charts are going to show, which is what the historical narrative says, that we all landed in Turkey and spread out from there. So let's go to the pie charts, if I can this time. First one is the mitochondrial DNA. You can see everybody represented here in the middle, and everybody spreading out from the middle, going to these different places. So the different families went different places from the Middle East, basically. In other words, these land areas, they traveled fairly easily, and only certain families went this way. Certain families went this way to Africa, this way to Europe, this way to Asia, Mongolia, Asia, Japan, and the Americas. Okay. This is the mitochondrial DNA. My mitochondrial DNA is H something or other. And that would be this blue in this European area. Would be the H. And I think that the H is Semitic, if I'm not mistaken. So if it's not Semitic, it would be from Japhethite, but I'm not sure if it's a Japhethite though, because it doesn't seem, it goes north and west, it doesn't go so much east. So I'm thinking it's Semitic. And the Japhethites went north, west, and east, but they're pretty much represented in the east because, as we will see, they are also have the Neanderthal DNA in them, which is through the wife, probably the wife of Japheth, that we have the Neanderthal DNA. So, and other than that, you can see how different families went different direction. And this is the Y chromosome chart. I mean, not the Y chromosome. This is the mtDNA, the female maternal DNA line. Okay, so now this is the Y chromosome DNA line, and it's showing that different families, different male father figures went different directions. So we have, and of course the Bible says that the Japhethites went north. So in the north we have the representatives of the Japhethites mixed with the Semites as well, because we have the Semites here and mixed in as well. So basically, let me just identify who is who here. But I did it in the other video, except that I didn't have the pie charts up. Hopefully this pie charts will explain it better. So we have A, B, C, D, and E would be the descendants of Ham. So the descendants of Ham went this way. Some of them went to India, to the Pacific Islands, and to Australia, as we can see represented with a C. This C color here is one of the descendants of Ham, identified by the Y chromosome. And if you're very perceptive, you can actually see the features in the people in this southern region, southern Pacific region, and even in this Mongolian region. And as we can see, we will see that also the Japanese region, because this green yellow color here is the D in the Hamite of the Hamites. So there's A, B, C, and D. So this DY chromosome is represented in Tibet largely, large population in Tibet, of course down here too in the Southern Pacific Islands, not so much as you get farther, but it's also represented here in Japan. So we have the Y chromosome going all the way to Japan. And also the C, which would be the Hamite, is highly represented down here in the Aborigines area, the New Zealand area, in the Pacific Islands, but it also went north to Mongolia, as I said, and also to as far as the Americas. So even in the Americas, the C is represented, which is the A, B, C, D, and E of the Hamites. So they didn't all go to Africa. Not all the Hamites went to Africa. Some of the Hamites went to Australia, the Pacific Islands, Indonesia and such, and New Zealand, and Mongolia, and even as far as America. So that's the Hamites. Now the Japhethites would be the FGHIJ. So we have the green is the J. Of course, you have green in Africa because they identified some of the descendants of Aaron, Moses' brother, in Africa, who are the Falashas, and they flew them out. They flew them to Israel because they're descendants of Moses' brother Aaron, who are the Kohanim, who are the priests of Israel. Of course, so they went all over the place. We got J all over the place. And because the Jews went all over the place. So they're up here too. I happen to be I, which is closely associated with the J, closely linked to the J. So I is probably Israel too. So the J, you could say maybe is Judah, and the I is Israel, who were dispersed north. The lost tribes of Israel went north into Europe, all the way as far as Europe. So we have this color here, whatever color that is, up here in Norway and Sweden and Finland, and as far as Iceland and the British Isles. So I happen to be from, my Y chromosome happens to be from the British Isles, from Scotland, northern or southern Scotland, or the Highlands of Scotland, or whatever, wherever it's from. And because of the Norwegians and the Scandinavians and such, and the Anglo-Saxons who invaded England, that's how my Y chromosome got to England. Of course, it got to Iceland too, I guess. So this is the Semitic line. This is Semitic. This is like probably from the lost tribes of Israel. And of course, the I doesn't go much where else. It's just, of course, it's represented in the Middle East, because that's where Israel came from, was the Middle East. But it's interesting how Israel went north. And basically, the Europeans are a mixture of Japhethites, who went north and east. So they're a mixture of Japhethites and Semites, which is the I. So it'd be actually the G and the H. The H is down here. I think it's the Dravidians in India and such, would be the H, and the G's are represented through Europe as well. And of course, there's I1 and I2, who are throughout Europe, of course, mixed in with the R population. So, and of course, the autosomal is a shared genetic information between all the peoples, regardless of whether the male line is Semitic or from Japheth or Japhethite or whatever it is. Of course, this yellow is the R1. It's not to be confused with a D. This yellow here is basically the same as the red. So the red and the yellow are two birds from the same line, or whatever. So red and yellow go together, red and yellow to go together, even the Q as well. So the red and yellow and the Q go together. The only thing that doesn't, that is from the other line, other brother, is the C. When you got the C, that's the other brother who was Ham, descendants of Ham. But of course, the autosomal makes everybody look pretty much the same, similar. Even though you can still see the features, the Hamitic features in some of the Mongolians and some of the West Indians, not the West Indians, the Indonesian, the Pacific Islanders and such, in New Zealand, and of course, Australia, the Aborigines. And the Aborigines are K and C. K seems to be Japhethite. So all this green is Japhethite. And the interesting thing is how these are dispersed. So the F, G, H, I, J are the Semitics, and then the K, L, M, N, O, P, Q are the Japhethites. So that accounts for all the rest of these Japhethites. And of course, these all the way in South America are Japhethites who came this way. And I think the white is other. The white is other. They don't really know what it is, or they haven't identified it. So they identify it as other. Because actually in South America, they're not all the same like it shows here. There are different tribes that look very different. Some have large noses like the big nose American Indians. You might have seen some big nose American Indians, and of course there's smaller nose Indians, of course, through Mexico and South America. They have smaller noses. But there's also the big nose represented in South America too. The big nose and indigenous kind of people. So, and that would be, I guess, more autosomal than Y chromosome or mtDNA. But the study is interesting, and of course, I would like to see a more detailed map of North and South America, which with North America does have a little bit of detail in here that South America doesn't have, but this is only the Y chromosome DNA, which is kind of interesting. Now this gray here, this DR, oh, that'd be the Dravidians, yeah. So the Dravidians, I guess, are largely the L, the gray, and the black, I think. Either one or the other. Maybe it's the gray. Maybe the gray are the Dravidians. I'm not sure. It's either the gray or the black. Of course, the yellow is the Japhethites. And the Dravidians are... Oh, the black. No, the black is the Semitic. And the yellow is the Japhethite. So, and the gray is the L. I think the gray is the Japhethites. So maybe the Dravidians are the H, the black. I think maybe that's what the Dravidians are, the black, the male line, because they're the Semites. Anyways, India has an interesting genetic makeup. They have a lot of Jewish population. Went to India, not a lot, but a significant amount, I guess. And you can see here. But the point being is that everyone is represented here in this middle section, which is basically where the ark landed. And everybody dispersed from this area here because they dispersed from the area of Turkey or wherever they were settled to build the Tower of Babel until the earth was divided and people separated into family groups, probably for fear, probably to help, for concern, to help out people in their family and to see if mom and dad were okay, sister and brother were okay because of the catastrophe of the breaking apart of the continents, which isolated them into groups, and so they eventually were speaking different languages, probably as a result of the breakup of the continents, the earth being divided. And so they were speaking different languages. That's when they went their own way 100 years after the global flood. So the animals had already been able to reach South America. They'd been able to reach Australia and all these places. The animals had already spread out. It took 100 years for the people to spread out, but the animals had already spread out and gone to their respective places where they felt they should be or something, which often corresponds to where their ancestors came from. So you have the sloths in South America, which are giant sloths. You have, of course, some of the marsupials in Australia, which happens to have been connected to South America by way of Antarctica, by way of before. There's actual maps, or there actually is a map that connects South America to Antarctica with showing all the rivers and everything correctly underneath the ice. So it's hard to argue with that. So, and of course, before the breakup of the continents, and another thing, when you talk about the breakup of the continents, it's not so much that India moved all this way and crashed this way. It's just that everything was moving all over the place. And so they basically crashed into each other. So what happened was probably, I believe that it was hit by, the earth was hit by an asteroid or something in this area, which kind of formed the connection here between the North and the South America, which they say wasn't connected. And it also, of course, caused the Atlantic Ridge to split, which broke apart everything. So everything went flying every which way. And there was undercurrents of continental plates sliding all over the place, and undercurrents from the being hit by the asteroid, which sent everything flying different directions. And India came from way down here and somehow got all the way up to Asia and smashed into Asia, the continents. So this, I believe, happened 100 years after the global flood, when the earth was divided. And then the families were split up and they went different directions. As you can see, different directions, different directions, different directions. And they're all represented here in the middle. So that's the point of this video, is just show the pie charts of the world. Of course, there's more pie charts here. This is an interesting map. It shows the J1E spilling over into Africa, where they had found the Falashes, which were the so-called black Jews, who are actual descendants, direct descendants of Moses' brother Aaron. And of course, you have this identifier, of course, in all Jewish populations spread out around the world as well. And so here you can see a little bit better the dispersion of the population. You see the I1. This is what I am. This is the Norway, Sweden, and Finland. This is the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons that invaded England, basically. So, and that would be my ancestors going back through the male line, which is the I is closely associated with the J, the I and the J. The R is the Japhethites, of course. The Q is the Japhethites. D here, this is the D where I was talking about. You have D down here, D down here. D is descendants of Hamite. Of course, you have D all the way in the other chart. You had D all the way over in Japan, according to the other chart. It shows some of the dispersal here. You got the C3b, which is the line of Ham, the descendant of Ham, which is also, these are all descendants of Ham in Africa, which would be the A, the B, the C is over here, the D is over here represented, and the E. Most of Africa, I think, is E. Of course, they have A0 and A00, which they think is the most original African. And they think that we all evolved from Africans, but that's not true because we're all brothers. We didn't evolve from Africans. Africans are our brothers. And they're represented not only in Africa, they're represented in Australia, of course, India, and even Mongolia and throughout Europe. And I mean, this is Europe. This is Eastern Europe, I guess. Mongolia and all the way to America are descendants of Ham. Not just, Africa. So see, the thing is that C is closely linked to the A, B, and E. So how did C get over here? Why is C over here and not here? Because it went this way instead of this way. So not all the sons of Ham went the same direction. Some of them went this way. Some of them went down here to India because they're represented over here, C in India. And of course, in this region here, and also Australia, which are the Aboriginals. And of course, the C made it all the way to America as well. So the descendants of Ham made it all the way to America. So we didn't evolve from Ham. Ham is one of the brothers who landed in the Middle East and left from the Middle East to go this way and this way and this way. And the rest of us were dispersed around in this way. So we have Q all the way up here. Then we have Q over here and over here. So somehow there's a break here. There's a break here in the population. Somehow they went from this area, of course this area, because this is Middle East, because that's where everybody came from, right here. And the Q, of course, basically were the ones to arrive in the Americas, along with some of the descendants of Ham. But the Q is the Japhethites, of course. And the Japhethites are, look what they have it down here. Exactly what I said. Look, A, B, C, D, and E, and F. This is the Hamites, F, and you have the F, and then the G, H, I, J, K. Just exactly what I said, are the Semites. And then the K, from the K, you have an L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. R, not S. But you have the, this is exactly what it is. This is Ham right here. This is the Noah's son Ham right here, represented right here. Not this, forget this. This doesn't make sense. This is Noah's son Ham. This is Noah's son Shem. And this is Noah's son Japheth, right here, right in front of your eyes. Look at that. Anyways, and they all came from Turkey. Everybody all spread out from Turkey 100 years after the global flood, when the earth was divided, when the continents broke apart. That's, of course, this people didn't spread out until after the continents broke apart. So they didn't go this way to South America. If they had left as soon as they got off the ark and went this way through Africa, they would have made it here. The animals did. The animals made it to South America. The humans did not. Because, see, you don't even have any Hamites. You have no Hamites in South America. And if they had crossed this divide before the continents were separated, you would have Hamites in South America, largely represented in South America. See this Adam? See this star right here where they said Adam was? They said it started out there. That's right that's right here. So if this was connected, and if they had spread out, if it was connected, they had spread out, they would be represented in South America, and they're not. They are represented up in North America, but not South America. The Hamites, but that's because they went this way. That's because the Hamites went this way, obviously, and this way, and into the Pacific Islands, and possibly crossed this ocean here, which would be a trip, to say the least. But that kind of proves the biblical narrative that the people only spread out after the continents broke apart, so they didn't reach South America, because if they had left Noah's Ark and went straight and spread out right away, instead of trying to build the Tower of Babel like they weren't supposed to do, they would have reached South America. They didn't reach South America because it broke apart before they started spreading out. So anyway, that's what happened. Okay, the D, we got the D here. D, remember D is Hamite. That's Japan. It's talking about, see the D? That's Japan. You got D2 here. That's someplace in China. This is someplace. I guess, is it the Philippines? But this is D. D is Hamite. See, down here? DE? No, they got DE together. They're not together. They're about as far apart as it can possibly get. You got D over here, and you got D1, D3, and you got D2 over here. I don't know why they made it that way, but that's as far as you can get from the rest of the Hamites, which are A, B, and E. And of course, the C you got here represented, you got C here represented, all here. So you got the C here and the D represented here. These are Hamites. The C and the D are Hamites, not the E. The E, Africa is mostly E, and a little bit B, and a little bit A. A little bit A here, B, and E. That's what Africa is, because the C's and the D's didn't go this way. The C's and the D's went this way. So that's why you have you can't argue with DNA. You just can't argue with it. And of course, we didn't come from the C's and the D's. If you're European, we didn't evolve from the Hamites. We didn't evolve from the Africans, because some of the Hamites went to Africa. The other two family groups didn't go to Africa. They went to Asia and Australia. So that's very, very telling right there, is that we did not evolve from the Africans. People, different families went in different directions because they were speaking different languages. That is a fact of history. And of course, after the Japhethites went north, the Japhethites are these people, remember? LMNOPQRST, R and T, whatever. This is all mixed up. But anyway, they went north, and then Israel, see the I and the J, they got them lumped together. They should be, not the D and the E. Well, they might have been closely related, but they're about as far apart as you can possibly get. The D and E are closely related, but they're so far apart, geographically, because they went different directions. Same thing here. The I and the J are closely related because Israel was spread out into Europe, the lost tribes of Israel. Of course, you had to have heard about the lost tribes of Israel. While Judah remained in Israel, Judah, that's where we get Jews from, the Judah, everybody spread out this way. And they even have traditions where Jesus went to England too, which is another story. Jesus probably went to England, or if the story is true, he went with Joseph of Arimathea, because Joseph of Arimathea had a tin trade, traded tin. He was a tin trader, and he was a rich man, and he's the one that buried Jesus because he had money, because he was a rich man. That rich man that buried Jesus that the Bible talks about is Joseph of Arimathea. Him and Anna of Arimathea reportedly, settled in England and became part of the historical line in England. So all this fight, in other words, because Joseph of Arimathea and Anna of Arimathea were descendants of Solomon. So everybody here in England, they were the whole dispute about which royal line was more royal than the other, more deserving of the to be king in England, was related to whether or not they were descended from Solomon by way of Joseph of Arimathea, by way of Anna of Arimathea, who supposedly, reportedly settled in England. And reportedly, Jesus actually set foot in England. He actually was there, physically present in England, according to they actually have a song that Jesus actually set foot in England. Of course, that would be when he was a child before his ministry in Israel. But so yeah, the person that buried Jesus was a relative of Jesus and descended from King Solomon, along with his daughter Anna of Arimathea, who settled in England, who married into the royal line of England. That's how the descendants of England are fighting over the royal line, is because everybody's trying to determine who is more related to King Solomon than anyone else. That's how they were determining who had more royalty than other people. Is who's descended directly from Anna of Arimathea, who married the royal line, married Bran, supposedly married Bran. But see, the problem is that the reason why it's considered mythology is because what happened was Joseph of Arimathea and Anna of Arimathea settled in England, had a son who also was reportedly in Rome, also reportedly went to Rome. And there's a whole big story about it. But what happened is that all of the records in England were destroyed about 700 BC, somewhere around there. They killed something like 800 bishops. Now, these 800 bishops existed around 700 BC because of Joseph and Anna of Arimathea, who were teaching Christianity, who had I don't want to say monastery, they had a place where they were teaching Christianity, and from there, that Christianity had developed. They had, um, 700 bishops were killed by the Roman Catholic Church, and they destroyed all of the records. In other words, the reason why there's so much mythology in England as to ancestry, people don't know the ancestry very well, going past a certain point in the early centuries, because all the records were destroyed, because the bishops were killed and all the records were destroyed by Rome, the Roman Catholic Church in England. It's a history that few people understand, and they killed all these bishops of Christianity that was reportedly the result or founded by Joseph of Arimathea and Anna of Arimathea. Of course, 700 years after, 600, 500 years after the fact would be a long way removed from Joseph of Anna of Arimathea, but that's how they fought over the royal line, was an argument of who was more closely related to Joseph of Arimathea and Anna of Arimathea, so that they could be related to King Solomon and have the authority of Israel. That's what the whole story of the Holy Grail and all this stuff, all this stuff in England is about, because of this connection of the tin trader, who was Joseph of Arimathea, who became wealthy from trading tin, and had enough money to buy a plot of land to bury Jesus, and then later settled in England. And Anna of Arimathea, the daughter of Joseph of Arimathea, married into the royal line, the British royal line, and that's how they dispute who's worthy of being king or not. And incidentally, I do have a genealogy. Of course, the Queen of England is not even supposed to be the legitimate Queen of England anyway. But it's a whole big dispute. But this whole big dispute as to who's more royal, who's more deserving to be king or not, stems from the relationship of how descended they are from King Solomon. And they would have to be descended from King Solomon through Joseph of Arimathea and Anna of Arimathea, who was Anna somebody else. They got other names and stuff. But incidentally, the Queen of England is my 10th cousin by way of one genealogy. And that's pretty close, considering the only closer cousin I have that's well known that I know of would be George Bush. Something like 8th cousin, something so many times removed or something like that. But the Queen of England is exactly my 10th cousin. But anyways, this royal line, that's where they get the royal line from, is this connection to King Solomon by way of this tin trader who became wealthy trading tin. Anyway, it's a whole big rabbit hole. But of course, there's a whole lot of dispute as to the mythology, how valid it is. But we know from experience that a lot of mythology has some fact in it. So that's that. So, and of course, you don't have to be related to King Solomon through Joseph of Arimathea, which I might be, but you can also be related in many other ways. There's so many other connections to the kings of Judah, or the king, even kings of Israel and stuff, kings of Judah. But that's the real history. That's our history. And of course, before Israel, before Judah and Israel, it was Abraham, who was a Sumerian, whose father made idols in the city of Ur, a Sumerian city called Ur. He was an idol maker, and they actually dug up the city of Ur of Samaria, and they found idols, probably made by Abraham's father or somebody Abraham's father knew. So they excavated the city of Ur, found idols, probably that Abraham's father knew about or actually made himself. Because remember, Abraham's father was an idol maker, and Abraham, according to tradition, according to some records, went smashing all the idols of his father that his father made, and he put the hammer in the hand of the biggest idol. He said, and his father came and says, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you break all these idols?" He says, "I don't know. Look who did it. It's the guy that has the hammer. He's the one that did it." They were a bunch of object credit givers back then. Of course, then that instigated a whole big persecution or attempt to kill Abraham because he had done that. So the people didn't like it too much, and they tried to kill Abraham. They killed somebody else instead, because I think his father or somebody substituted Abraham for somebody else, and somebody else was killed, and Abraham fled. He went to Israel. He went to city of Salem, apparently, reportedly, by tradition, and the king of Salem, reportedly by tradition, Jewish tradition, is Shem himself, the son of Noah, Shem. So Abraham was a Shemite. He fled his father's house and went to live with Shem and was raised by Shem. So whenever he's offering tithes to the king of Salem, he would be then offering tithes to Shem, or in other words, sustaining Shem. But of course, he would have to be still living. Shem would have to still be living at the time, and by some genealogies, he is still living. But anyways, it's a whole bunch of stuff. One day we'll straighten it all out. We'll get it all straight. But this DNA evidence is pretty persuasive, pretty convincing here, that everybody left Turkey, this area of Turkey, Greece, and Italy, this whole area here, and spread out and went different directions. And we got the evidence to prove it. Asked exactly who is who, We got the Y chromosome DNA, we got the mitochondrial as well, which I got to study up on some more. So it all proves the Bible's true and the historical records are true. The actual historical records, If you disagree with it, what records do you have? You don't have any records. You don't have any reason for disagreeing it because you don't have any evidence of any kind. We have the evidence. We have the records. We have the DNA evidence to prove it as to exactly who is who. You got Japhethites here in the middle of Africa, descendants of Japheth, because they went this way instead of going this way. Some went this way. Some went this way. Some went this way. Descendants of Japheth. And these over here, descendants of Shem, descendants of Israel. This right here, R1A, R1A, those are Shemites, closely associated with the J ones. See, the I and the J closely associated, just like they say the D and the E are closely associated but miles apart. That's because one family went this way, the other family went that way. Or maybe it was part of the same family, they split up and went that way. I don't know. But the I and the J are pretty much the same family. Israel is one family, Judah is one tribe of Israel. And of course, when Israel spread out, some of the people came back to Judah. Of course, Paul is a Benjamite. He's not descended from Judah. Paul, the Apostle Paul, Saul, he's a Benjamite. So some of the dispersed people came back to Judah, came back to Israel or Judah, and that's what's called Jews today. So it's a mixture of Judah and whatever Israelites came back to Judah, and such. And of course, we're all still here, except we're all mixed up. We're all a mixture of everything, We're autosomally we're mixed up, and Israelites Jews themselves are pretty autosomally, you know, diverse, you might say, themselves. And if you want to know who's closest to being Jews, it would be a lot of Arabs are more genetically, like Jews than anybody else, of course, because Abraham had 6 or 7 other sons that he sent in different directions. And of course, I guess they didn't go so far, but these sons were descendants of Abraham, of course, just like Isaac was a descendant of Abraham. And only, I don't want to get into any arguments or anything, but I think the Jews were a little lighter complexion than the Arabs, the 7 other sons of Abraham, because there seems to be like a lot of, I don't know, influence here, lighter influence, which of course is, David was ruddy with beautiful eyes. So, in other words, he was ruddy, is red-skinned, red hair with light-colored eyes. So supposedly everybody has blue eyes or light-colored eyes, green eyes or whatever, are supposed to be relatives or of David, are supposed to be, not only David, but everybody else has blue eyes and stuff. And my eyes are kind of blue. I always thought they were green. And that's another thing. I didn't, when I was a kid, people would ask me, well, on St. Patrick's Day, everybody would be celebrating St. Patrick's Day, right? And they would ask me, the other kids would ask me, are you Irish? I said, I don't know. Turns out I'm like 65% Irish. But anyway, another story. Well, it's a lot of interesting things. Anyways, there's another map. This is kind of more confusing, but it's, shows something anyway. I think it's an older map. It's not as explanatory. Its pie charts are really good because it shows you the population and the Y chromosomes. And of course, this would be the mtDNA haplogroups of the world, which also shows basically the same thing. How everybody's spread out from this central region right here. It went different directions. So that pretty much disproves evolution and confirms what the Bible says, that everybody landed in Turkey, spread out from there. And it's good to be on the right side, because if you're on the right side, you're going to be wrong forever. You're going to be ashamed and disgraced forever. And of course, we teach the truth. We teach the truth that only your Maker can remake you, nobody else can. He's the only one that can cover for you himself and send you his Holy Spirit to wash you and cleanse you by the power of his true word, because he is able to make all grace abound towards you, so that you always, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good deed. Oh, here we go. A wild heart. Hey, JJ, I have plenty of pies in my DNA. Yes, okay. Was she German? 700 BC. No, the queen is also German. Well, I'm like 20% German. My dad would be like 40% German. Yeah, my dad has a Bieber in him. It's not actually a beaver, but it is a Bieber. It's a small world, I guess. Yeah, the queen is also German. Oh yeah, she's also German. Okay. Those object credit givers, yeah. It's those object credit givers, I'm telling you. But you're not supposed to use bad words here. I don't even know how to delete this thing. I don't know how to delete the message. Oh, anyway. Yeah, nice to see you. Good to see you, Wildheart. Yeah, I'm studying pie charts. I got to study the DNA chart a little bit better. So I got to probably going to end it unless anybody has something to say, a question. There you go. Evolution disproved. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be getting my Nobel Prize pretty soon. I think it's in the mail. It's in the mail. I had to send my old phone back in the mail. Anyway, yeah, the evolution is looking pretty bad. I mean, we got the great debate, or the modern day debate. We got the standing for truth. They're really racking it up. I mean, they're really hammering evolution quite a bit, at least, standing for truth, and some people's Matt and stuff. So yeah, there's evolution's having a hard time, having a tough time. They can't even evolve a leg to stand on. Pun intended. But anyways, yeah, it's great to see you, and I don't want to beleaguer this hangout. I mean, this live stream. So I'll see you around maybe, and yeah, only our Maker can remake us again. Nobody else can. He's the only one that can perfectly cover for us himself. All our sin is on and against him. He takes it all on himself. And because he loves us. So that's that. I hope that I guess I was, yeah, screen sharing what I was showing. Because the other video, I forgot the screen share. Okay, yeah. Good to see you again, too. Maybe I'll be on later tonight. If Canderman said he might have a live discussion with me. So we'll see. So I'll see you then, maybe, or some other time.